All right, welcome back. Welcome back again. First, we talked about the curriculum approaches in the previous module, and in this module, we will be talking about philosophies and then foundations, various foundational approach to the curriculums. Like, for example, if you look into the foundations, there can be philosophical foundations, historical foundations, psychological foundations, and social foundations. So let's catch up all of those. If you look into philosophical foundations of curriculum, this deals with the larger aspects of life and the way we organize our thoughts and interpret facts. It is an effort to understand life, its problems and issues in full perspective. So it involves questions and our own point of view as well as the views of the others. It involves searching for defined values and clarifying our beliefs. This provides educators especially curriculum workers with a framework or frameworks for organizing schools and classrooms. It helps them determine what schools are for, what subjects have value, how students learn, and what methods and materials to use. It classifies education's goals, suitable content, teaching and learning processes, and the experiences and activities that schools should emphasize. Philosophy also provides a basis for deciding which textbooks to use, how to use them, and how much homework to assign, how to test students and use the test results, and what courses or subject matter to emphasize. The major philosophies that guide one is on focus on subject matters, that is predominantly traditional approach, the philosophical approach, and they are idealism and realism. But in contemporary philosophies, pragmatism and existentialism has taken the root. So in pragmatism, American philosophy is normally focused, and in existentialism, European philosophy is most dominant. So what is idealism? Plato started from a Plato, Socrates, like Socrates equal to teacher and Aristotle equal to student, and Augustine, philosopher, theologian, and bishop at that time. It was 354 to 430 AD. Frederick Froebel, founder of kindergarten in the US, proponent of idealist pedagogy in education. For example, for Plato, the ideas can be integrated into universal concepts and a meaningful whole. Truth can be found through reasoning, intuition, and religious revelation. For Hegel, one could progress toward truth by continually synthesizing theses and antitheses, thereby arriving at ever higher levels of understanding. Many idealists also believe that the highest aim is the search for truth and enduring values. That idealism. Now, how do we relate that into our curriculum then? Learning is primarily intellectual process that involves recalling and working with ideas. Education is properly concerned with conceptual matters, right? And our curriculum is hierarchical and relates ideas and concepts to one another, constitutes humankind's cultural heritage, and is based on learned disciplines. For example, liberal arts curriculum. There is trivium and quadrivium, like kind of grammar, rhetoric, and logic, classical antiquity period, and arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, like medieval period. Idealists normally consider the classics ideal subject matters because they convey enduring moral truths. Okay, that is subject matter concept. How does this work? For example, it has top priority for philosophy and theology, then mathematics, then history and literature and language and sciences. They are the lowest priorities. In realism, when the Aristotle actually came into the play, student of Plato, he often linked to the development of realism another traditional school of thought, right? So previously we were talking about idealism, now came realism. Aquinas philosophy, which combined realism with Christian doctrine, developed an offshoot of realism called Thomism, in which much of contemporary Catholic education is rooted. In Nepal, in this kind of small country where I was born, They have all these Jesuit schools also in operation, and they have been the foundations for the many of the leading positions holders now in the country. For Aristotle, everything has a purpose, and humans' purpose is to think. Encourages people to live a rational life of moderation, to strive for the golden mean, a compromise between extremes. For Aristotle and Aquinas, the universe is ordered. Things happen for a purpose, and education should illuminate purpose. Okay, that was realism. Then, what is the link is with the curriculum? Realists view the world in terms of objects and matter. Perhaps that's where the truth lies, right? People can come to know the world through their senses and their reason. Everything is derived from nature and is subject to its laws, right? Human behavior is rational when it conforms to nature's laws and when it is governed by physical and social laws. A curriculum comprises separate content areas like history and geology. The most general and abstract subjects all are at the top of the curricular hierarchy. Lessons that cultivate logic and abstract thoughts are stressed. The three R's are basic to education. They are reading, writing, and arithmetic. Realists value the sciences as much as ours. Okay, so a little bit of rationality with the art also. Then came the pragmatism. Pragmatists, mainly in the US philosophy that we evolved just prior to 1900. Pragmatism, also known as experimentalism, is based on change, process, and relativity. Knowledge is a process in which reality is constantly changing. Learning occurs as the person engages in problem solving, which is transferable to a wide variety of subjects and situations. Both the learner and the learner's environment are constantly changing, so it's a dynamic process. Pragmatists reject the idea of unchanging and universal truths. The established generalizations and assertions are the only guides that people have when they interact with their social world or environment for further research and verification. For example, when a parliament makes a law, it gets into effect following the constitution of a country, right? If we look into the political economy of the country, then at that time, when it gets into practice, there are all loopholes and then all challenges of this law in effect. Sometimes it violates others' rights, or sometimes it is incomplete in explaining the need of the society. Then somebody contests that into the Supreme Court or in the court system, legal system. There goes the debate for and against, like opponent and the supporters of the lawyers and legal systems. They analyze all the issues, and then ultimately, when the legal system, the judiciary system, actually says this is the way in your false consciousness of understanding this law, this is the way to go. And then becomes a kind of wisdom that can be a very, very robust. Similarly, when you are a pragmatist, you actually perhaps interact with the whole concept of thinking into problem solving, and then also learning how the changing reality, the changing environment actually shapes your thoughts and your understanding of the society, right? They reject the idea of unchanging and universal truths. Then teaching should focus on critical thinking at this point. Teaching is more exploratory than explanatory. The method is more important than the subject matter. Questions such as why, how come, and what if are much more important than what, who, or when. Okay, so reasoning is the center of the discussion. Scientific developments around 1900 fostered pragmatic philosophy. Society increasingly accepted scientific explanations for phenomena. Mathematicians Charles Peirce and psychologist William James developed the principles of pragmatism, which rejected the dogmas of preconceived truths and eternal values and promoted testing and verifying ideas. Truth no longer was absolute or universal. John Dewey was the great educational pragmatist who viewed the education as a process for improving the human condition, schools as specialized environments within the larger social environment. It is ideally a curriculum was based on child's experiences and interests, prepare the child for life's affairs, and has the subject matter interdisciplinary, which emphasize problem solving and the scientific method both. Then came the existentialism, right? This is mainly a European philosophy that originated earlier but became popular after World War II. In US education, Maxine Green, George Naylor, and Van Cleve Morris are well known existentialists who stress individualism and personal self fulfillment. For existentialist philosophy, people continually make choices and thereby define themselves. We are what we choose to be. In doing so, we make our own essence or self identity. The essence we create is a product of our choices, which varies among individuals, right? So, this is also a paradigm shift in the thinking. If you look into the curriculum, these schools of thoughts actually advocate that students be free to choose how and what they study, like provide a menu, and then actually maybe they can select or even go beyond menu. And critics argue that such free choice would be too unsystematic and less fair, especially at the elementary school. And existentialists believe that the most important knowledge is knowledge of the human condition. Education should develop consciousness of choices and their significance. And existentialists reject the imposition of group norms, authority, and established order. And they recognize standards, customs, or opinions as indisputable. And this also says that this consists of experiences and subjects that lend themselves to individual freedom and choice. See, automatically Habermas is actually emerging here also. For example, the arts are stressed because they cultivate self-expression and portray the human condition and situation involving choices. Teachers and students discuss their lives and choices. In particular, literature, drama, filmmaking, music, and art reflect self expressive activities and illustrate emotions, feelings, and insights, all conducive to existentialist thinking. In STEM pedagogy, also perhaps some part of this existentialism is vivid because there is art as a dominant emerging solution creator for the humanities problems and crises and the ethical dilemmas. So, if we summarize all of these into one slide, idealism is a spiritual reality, moral or mental, unchanging reality. Knowledge is thinking and led in ideas. Values are absolute and eternal. And teacher's role is to bring latent knowledge and ideas to consciousness to be a moral and spiritual leader. And if it emphasizes learning and recalling knowledge and ideas, abstract thinking is the highest form. And the curriculum emphasis and curriculum is knowledge-based, subject-focused, classic or liberal arts, hierarchy of subjects, philosophy, theology, and mathematics, for example. They are very important. In realism, knowledge is based on subject, knowledge-based, subjects-based arts and sciences, hierarchy of subjects is also there. In pragmatism, no permanent knowledge of subjects, knowledge of subjects, appropriate experiences that transmit culture and prepare individuals for change. Problem solving activities might be very, very powerful. Then existentialism in choices in subject matter, electives, emotional, aesthetic, and philosophical subjects. That summarizes the major philosophies that we have, right? So, in summarizing further in the educational philosophies, we can think of perennialism, essentialism, progressivism, and reconstructionism. This is educational philosophy. Previously, it was curriculum, how the whole curriculum foundations and then approaches were actually built, right? We're talking about mainly the philosophies of traditional philosophies, idealism, realism, pragmatism, existentialism on the philosophical foundations of curriculum. But now, when you get into education as the unit of analysis, there is another shift. There's a kind of perennialism, essentialism, progressivism, and reconstructionism. That's what is actually happening, right? So, like enough, if you look into perennialism, that draws heavily on realism. Essentialism is rooted in idealism and realism, And progressivism and reconstructionism stem from pragmatism. And some reconstructionists also are linked to existentialist views. So you see the mapping, the curriculum philosophies and education philosophies are actually mapping well. And if the reader is interested into perennialism and also the linkage with the educational philosophy, we can actually be in private and have a conversation. This is very tedious and then also challenging to actually express at this point. At least my knowledge base is not at par at this time. However, this is interesting to note that lately progressivism and humanistic curriculums are actually being developed, and then also reconstructionism is taking the shape throughout the world, right? So this is amazingly powerful narration that we need to think. Curriculum must be transformed in keeping with the new social, economic, political education, and it must incorporate it must have a reformist approach. Society is always changing, and the curriculum has to change also, right? Critical pedagogy falls into this category. Okay, so that's kind of if you look into um, the role of education into different domains that we talked about: perennialism, essentialism, progressivism, and reconstructionism. The role of education in perennialism is like teacher helps students think rationally based on Socratic method. Oral exposition expresses teaching of traditional values. In essentialism, teacher is authority in particular subject area, explicit teaching of traditional values. In progressivism, teacher is guide for problem solving and scientific inquiry. In reconstructionism, teacher serves as an agent of change. See, the shift is changing here. Acts as a project director and research leader, helps students become aware of problem confronting humankind. So he is actually introducing the change. However, if you get into latest fad on design thinking, it is the students they have to get into the real world, explore the real world, and then empathize and then try to understand the problem, come up with the problem to solve. So that is a little bit of departure from this reconstructionist logic, but still, it is a reconstructionist itself, right? That way, we have looked into the basics of philosophies of education also, and radical school reform is actually taking shape now. All of these ideas that we got into philosophical base and educational philosophy can be mapped together, and that way we capture the philosophical side of the curriculum and education. I think this is what I wanted to talk about in this video. But of course, there are, I forgot the other approaches. Let's catch up quickly the other approaches that we talked about: behaviorism, cognitive psychology, and phenomenology, and humanistic psychology that is actually based on psychological foundations, right? So we can think of like how the cognitive psychology has evolved, how people organize knowledge, how people store information, how people retrieve data and generate conclusions, what are the types and its influences on further cognitive actions. All of these questions are actually built into cognitive thinking. Even Bloom's taxonomy actually talks about that. Not only cognition, it talks about affective domain also. In phenomenology or in humanist psychology, that is the study of immediate experiences as one's reality. So that is how the whole phenomenon actually developed. We possess some sense of control and freedom to produce certain conditions in our environment. I don't know how powerful it is, but this is even influencing the environment and shaping the environment. When we speak of this awareness of control, we are speaking of the self. So it gives phenomenological view, humanist psychology. If we get into sociological and foundations of curriculum, society, education, and schooling are there. Moral character education is a part of the system. Culture of school is important, and culture of the classroom is also important. That way, historical foundations have emerged into various domains. Ornstein and Hunkins' 2018 curriculum foundations, principle, and issues guided most of these narratives that I have here. Right? That way, we have about historical foundations, sociological foundations, and then also um, behaviorism, that is also embedded into psychological foundations of curriculum, and also philosophical foundations of the education side curriculum. I trust a brief overview of this concept is now clear to you, and we can have conversations into through my LinkedIn or my other social medias. So get engaged. Just like the button so that you will get other videos whenever I'm live and then scheduling another ones. Thank you very much for listening.